Welcome, Stephen, to my channel. Thank you. It is such an honor to have you on today.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure.
For those people that don't know who you are, just could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So my name's Stephen Jackson. I'm an attorney. I live in north of Seattle, so right next to the Canadian border. I've been a criminal defense attorney for about 6 years. But before that, I worked in journalism, and I worked in journalism down in Las Vegas, where I covered Stephen's case fairly extensively. So I've been kind of behind the scenes a lot. So people have seen a lot of what I've done, but people who follow the case, but certainly not heard from me.
How did you first hear about the Stephen Koecher case?
So a little bit of background. My beat was largely just crime. So I worked a lot of criminal cases as far as reporting on murder and robbery and all that good stuff. I ran a blog, and my blog was at the television station I worked at, was the Clark County Homicide Report, or maybe the Las Vegas Homicide Report. I can't remember which. It's been a long time. And the Homicide Report basically was just I tracked every single murder that happened in Las Vegas. So every person who was killed at the hands of another. So that kind of got me into the world of missing persons, because what would happen is people would call me, who my brother went missing. Can you help? Something along those lines. I see that you're reporting. So that sort of morphed into me covering a lot of missing people and a lot of those cases. I remember it clear as day. I was just sitting at my desk one day, and the press release came from the Henderson Police Department. That press release I would get a lot of them. I mean, I think that the numbers when I was reporting, there was like 700 people a year that go missing in Las Vegas. The vast majority are found within days or hours of their report being filed. Stephen's case was weird because of the location where he went missing. So I remember popping open that press release, and it had that missing persons flyer that we've all seen, and being like, what the hell was he doing down there? Like, this doesn't make any. I mean, I knew the area, I know the area of Las Vegas like the back of my hand, and so that spot going missing there didn't make much sense. So I contacted the public information officer for Henderson. He and I, they actually had two public information officers at the time. We had a very close relationship. We knew each other very well, and I was like, what's the scoop? And he said, don't worry about it. This is a voluntary walk away type thing. His passport's missing.
That was somebody from the Henderson Police Department that told you that?
Okay. Yeah. And he was like, his passport's missing, so we just assumed that he split on his own. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And I kind of just put it aside. And I want to say about a week later, the same press release with the same missing persons flyer came back. They sent it again, and I was like, have you developed new information? Like, this doesn't make sense. So I called, I obviously talked to them again, and they were like, we found the passport. So now we're kind of asking for the public's help. Did some research, and I found the Facebook page that the family had created, and I reached out to the family and then followed the case for, what are we going on, 11 years now? So 12 years. So yeah.
In that early investigation that you're doing, was there something like a challenge or anything that seemed different from other missing persons cases that you had investigated before?
Yes. So law enforcement was very difficult to deal with. As a journalist, you have sources. You have people who give you things, tell you things. They tell you things on the record. They tell you things off the record, whatever. Your goal is to not burn those sources. In other words, if somebody says like, hey, this is something that literally happened to me, but hey, we're arresting OJ right now at the Palms, you keep your mouth shut about that. Like, you don't talk about it until that's sort of a preparatory moment in your life where you can be like, hey, I got to go to the Palms and take care of this to your supervisors, but we can't report it. With Henderson Police specifically, they are generally locked down pretty tight. So I have talked to a detective from Henderson Police once in 11 years of doing that job. And the one time I talked to the detective from Henderson Police was on this case, was on Stephen's case. And it was months, if not years after Stephen went missing. So just getting anything from law enforcement was extremely difficult, despite the fact that they had no reason to be evasive or hiding things or things like that.
Yeah, that's kind of the vibe that I've gotten, or that I've heard from a lot of people, is that the police were not very thorough. I don't know. I don't want to get into that. I won't say too much, but
Yeah,
yeah.
I can talk about that for days. Specifically Henderson Police. It's something that is something that annoys me is Henderson Police. So their crime solving abilities sometimes seem wanting.
Yeah, and like basically what you were saying there about how so many people go missing in the Las Vegas, Henderson area every year, that they just, an excuse for them could be they just don't have the resources
Right.
to, and I don't know. Yeah, it's disappointing to say the least.
Yeah.
What I've seen, how they've handled Stephen's case.
Yeah.
Now, so you did talk to the family directly at some point?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Quite a bit actually. I still actually talk to one member of the family sporadically, but regularly. So what happened was I sort of reached out to the family and said, hey, I want to write something about Stephen, and they said that's great. You know, we would be happy to. They're actually Stephen's dad was a newspaper editor, so they're kind of media savvy where that's concerned. So I remember I went down to one night. It was pouring rain, which was unusual for Las Vegas, and I went to the IHOP, which is off of Boulder Highway in Flamingo, which is generally a terrible neighborhood. And that's where I met the family for the first time. And it was this big group of very terrific people who, you know, were sitting around a table waiting for a person to come into the restaurant because they had gotten a tip that someone resembling Stephen had been appearing at that restaurant. The atmosphere was sort of almost, I don't want to say festive, but everybody was there for a very grim reason. But at the same time, I think that nobody wanted to sort of bring up why we were there and what we were all doing there. It was the most humanizing family I might have ever met. They were terrific.
Yeah, I recall that that IHOP story. That I think that shows up on the disappeared episode.
Yeah, we spent quite a lot of time there. And if I'm not mistaken, his dad and brother went back a lot. I mean, several times over the course of a couple of weeks. So, and made that little pilgrimage, if you will, to just sit and wait and hope that he came in.
Then at some point you went from just like reporting on the case and kind of just investigating to actually becoming involved with the searches. Is that correct?
I wouldn't say I searched. I definitely still was in reporter and reporting mode when I was into the searches. I just basically stuck with family members and observed. So I didn't necessarily take part in the searches. I was at that search that was in that desert area off of, I want to say, American Pacific is the name of the street. You know, again, that was another situation where I'm with the family. They're all delightful people. And I remember asking his cousin, who was my sort of primary contact, like, why are we here? You know, very simple. Throw out that question so I can get a quote. And she just almost couldn't vocalize it. I don't know that anybody wanted to think about why we were there.
You and me have talked about the idea that Stephen, took that path to walk out on his life or walk out into the desert is just completely absurd. And what's your take on that?
So, that's literally the reason why I agreed to talk to you about this, because I've not met anybody who, there's a lot of people who have investigated this case, but no one has taken that step to actually go to that cul-de-sac and see what we're talking about. There is zero, in my mind, there is zero chance that was his location that he chose to walk away from his life. If he, I think I told you this. I used to live in downtown Las Vegas. My wife and I were very much invested in the notion of downtown Las Vegas revitalization. But a block away from our house was an apartment complex that was, regularly visited by law enforcement. He could have dumped his car there, and that car would not be reported for months. He could have parked his car in a casino parking
Yeah.
lot, walked away from it. That car would not. He parks his car at the end of a cul-de-sac and walks away from it and thinking like nobody's going to find this. In a retirement community, we know what that's like. In Anthem, that car is reported within hours, if not a couple of days. I mean, and then to get to that spot is not, this, it's not easy to get to that spot. This is a purposeful location.
Yeah, and I believe at some point that the homeowners association had like a security checkpoint or something going on there, so they're constantly driving around, and they have a really strong neighborhood watch system set up. So, like you said, anything that's out of the ordinary, there's eyes on it immediately.
Right, and that's exactly how this neighborhood is. You're also so far away from any bus stops or any mass transit locations that can take you away and put you somewhere else. It just seems so purposeful that was the location he went to, but purposeful in a manner that like doesn't reflect, I'm just going to dump my car here. It doesn't make sense.
So speaking about the neighborhood, when you were there during the search or any of your early investigations, did you ever talk with any of the neighbors in that neighborhood?
Yeah, I did. I talked to who did I talk to? I talked to a few folks who just lived on, is it Evening Lights? Is that the one that sort of heads east-west?
That's Savannah. There's Savannah Springs, and then Evening Lights is the street that he was on when he disappeared.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Savannah Springs. So I talked to some of the neighbors on Savannah Springs, the surveillance camera house.
Okay.
But nothing of note that came up. Everybody was, by the time I got there and got sort of feet on the ground, everybody was very aware of what was happening, that their doors had been knocked on by multiple people, family, law enforcement. And so there wasn't anything that could give me any direction. They hadn't seen anything.
Did you happen to interview like any police officers or detectives that were, had boots on the ground there at any time?
Yes. I talked to the lead detective in the case.
Are you talking about Detective McKay? Is that the one? Or
yeah, I talked to him. I want to say it was about a year later, and it was like pulling teeth to get them to talk to me. And it was a very brief conversation. It seemed like there was a bit of a jurisdictional issue where they were dealing with St. George Police, St. George, Utah Police. But he did mention the same thing that raised my antenna was a cause for concern for him, which is why was he in that area? They had multiple sightings in town, but none of those sightings ever panned out. They checked bus stations, airports, anyways out of town that he could have used. Nothing came of those. They did something out in Sandy Valley, Nevada, which is a whole other ball of wax. And I can certainly talk about that because I have a lot of long conversations about Sandy Valley. And then they just did like an electronic search. They went through his email, they went through all of that stuff and didn't come up with anything. So they are as seemingly as mystified as everyone else. What I found notable is the lack of a suspect. I mean, I was able to sort out some criminal activity in Stephen's relating to Stephen's life fairly quickly, not involving Stephen, but in his life. And I'm surprised that they don't write a word about that in their reports.
You're talking about the computer that they checked. Did you happen to see the computer files yourself? I believe there's a post on Web Sleuths where you state that you did take a glance at his computer. Is that true, or his emails?
I was able to get his emails. So he had a Yahoo account, and then I think a couple of like Gmail accounts, if I'm not right around the time like Gmail became popular. I don't think he ever, as I recall, he didn't use those Gmail accounts very extensively. The Yahoo account was horrible to deal with. I mean, it was just lots of email, but nothing relevant. It was a lot of job search alerts. It's been a long time since I've looked at them. So, and I don't have the records or anything like that,
But nothing that would put him in that area of him.
right,
No,
right.
okay.
And I mean, like just knowing someone's email address, you're able to know a lot about that person just based on what they've done online. And nothing, there was literally nothing that raised alarms or anything like that. The email was such a sort of disappointing dead end. I mean, I was surprised that there wasn't at least something related to the area.
I think you've seen my first video where I asked for the family to kind of release those emails, but if you're saying there's nothing in there that you think anyone could, like any type of information anyone could garner from that, then I don't know. What do you think about as far as the family releasing some of those details? Do you think they should do that at this point?
I'll be honest, I don't know that they even have access to it with it being an account that hasn't been used. As I recall, I didn't find anything that was personal. So you and I have exchanged emails. I didn't find anything like that. I didn't find, now I'm thinking about it, I did, but it wasn't anything like dramatic. It was, pretty mundane things. I don't know what use that would be, releasing his emails, just largely because like I said, there was just so many, and it was, I mean, let's just say 10,000 emails of that 10, and I'm not saying it was 10,000, I'm just throwing that number out there. Probably 9,950 were alerts from job postings, like job boards, like Indeed and stuff like that.
Okay.
So it was obviously somebody who was looking for work. That was really what he used. I get the feeling he wasn't a very technologically savvy guy. That he largely just, stuck to phone calls rather than text, letters rather than emails, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that was the saddest part of that disappeared episode for me, was when Rolf Koecher is talking about the resumes that were found in the back of his car in the trunk. And they show a picture of those resumes. That was just really sad. Yeah, I don't know what to think about, the family releasing those documents, if it would really be beneficial or not.
So, I mean, as an attorney now, and even when I was investigating cases in the world of journalism, there's a lot of static in some cases. Some cases just have a lot of noise, and you have to filter out that noise. And I feel like I spent a lot of time in that email account, and I can't remember there being a single thing that was helpful.
Okay.
Yeah, but I could be completely wrong. But like I said, it might be a lot of noise.
So you are the Stephen that put out the phone ping records, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I apologize to you. I'll apologize to you again.
Oh,
yeah,
don't worry.
I'm really sorry about it. It was just that first video was more of like to me, it's like a reaction video, because I just read those documents and my jaw hit the floor and I was just very emotional. So
yeah, we all do.
I kind of criticized the phone ping records, but
that's okay.
But yeah, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So the phone pings, and I'm just going to be straight up, and I tried to be straight up as upfront with everyone that I could who's asked. I got a document that contained what his phone was doing during a date range when he went missing. I'm picking my words very carefully, and I'll explain why.
Okay.
That document is an internal document. It was given to me by a source. I can't show it to anybody, and I can't tell how I got it.
Sure.
So what I'm asking is, people trust me, and I realize that that's very difficult to do. It is what it is. I wish I could share it. I can't. What the document shows is his phone activity and how his phone was interacting with certain cell towers, and like when calls would come in, when texts would come in, when calls would go out, etc. When Stephen went missing and when I got that document, there was not the broad open source investigative tools that there are now. And I think that that would be very helpful to us at that time, because what it does is, what I can do now is I can see a cell tower ID number, and then using software that I have, I can find exactly where that tower is. In Steven's case, now, those cell tower ID numbers are long expired or have been upgraded, and so they're not, a CDMA connection or something like that. Now they're like LTE and 5G towers. So they don't translate. In some cases, you could see the cell tower and you have this ID number, and so you couldn't say Steven's phone was connecting to this particular cell tower at this location. But in another field in the document, it would say, for example, Bermuda and Cactus. Bermuda and Cactus are cross streets in the Las Vegas Valley. We know exactly where that is. Drop a pin. I would just make that assumption that Bermuda and Cactus translated to the Bermuda and Cactus cross streets. Similarly, I-15 and 515 and I-215. So those were two freeways. One is the Beltway in Las Vegas, and then the other takes you down to like Boulder City, Hoover Dam, etc. So that's the tower where that's like the last ping. So one of those towers is called just Pecos. Pecos is a street in Las Vegas that runs north-south. I never assigned a location to the Pecos tower. I just put it out there. It's Pecos. Someone, I don't know who, said, I think that the Pecos tower is up kind of north Las Vegas area near Nellis Air Force Base. And that has sort of become where that tower is. I freely admit I don't know that that's accurate.
Okay.
When I got the reason I cite Pecos is when I got the police reports, I saw that they had GPS coordinates for two towers. And your jaw hit the ground, my jaw hit the ground too, because we've always operated under the assumption that he was in Las Vegas when his brethren in the LDS church contacted him that morning. But that is not accurate according to the police report. So I don't know what to make of the discrepancy. I really don't.
Yeah, I've been looking into that a little bit more, and I might have an answer, which I'll make it. I'm probably going to put a video up about it, and I'll definitely let you know.
Okay.
At some point, I'll email it to you. It's a possibility, in my opinion, that the St. George police officer, when he was entering that GPS location, may have made a one-digit error.
And that's very reasonable to believe. The Sloan ping makes total sense.
Yes.
Like Sloan could be that 95 515 tower. 515 215 tower. The ping in California, to me, I was just like, that can't be.
Yeah, that's the questionable one, and that's the one I think there might be an error. The Sloan, Nevada ping and GPS, those match completely. The police report as well as the report that you posted. So we're 100% on that he was at least in that general area at that point. Yeah. But you said something to me that the pings are not really the smoking gun. The case doesn't really teeter on those pings.
I think the pings give us an idea of what he was up, where he was. But I think the bigger question is why. I think you figure out the why, you have solved the case.
Thank you so much for checking out this update of the Stephen Koecher case. If you have any information on the disappearance of Stephen Koecher, please contact me, the Unfound Podcast, or the Henderson Police Department. I am offering a personal reward of $2,000 for any information that would help lead to the discovery of what happened to Stephen Koecher. Thanks again for watching, and please subscribe for future updates on my further investigations into the disappearance of Stephen Koecher.